In 1997, a book was published. It appeared at a time when public interest in UFOs was at its peak, coinciding with the 50th anniversary of Roswell, and a broader wave of 1990s pop culture around the themes of conspiracy and the X-Files. Entitled Alien Agenda: Investigating the Extraterrestrial Presence Among Us, this book by Jim Marrs quickly became a bestseller in the UFO conspiracy genre and is often described by commentators as one of the best-selling non-fiction titles on UFOs of its time. It sold a significant number of copies in mainstream bookstores, helping to bring the subject of UFOs out of a niche audience.
Oh, I have a feeling we're going to be talking about some completely crazy topics today.
You can bet on that. And today, we're diving deep into the claims, the patterns, and the contradictions at the heart of Marrs's investigation. From ancient anomalies to Cold War secrecy, from abductions to official silence. Strap in. This is the Alien Agenda. Jim Marrs was a Texas journalist and author whose work often sat at the intersection of official narratives and unsettling evidence. Before Alien Agenda, Marrs was known for Crossfire, a detailed look at the JFK assassination that influenced the film JFK. With Alien Agenda, first published in the 1990s, Marrs brought that investigative tenacity to the UFO mystery, collecting interviews, vetting documents, and revisiting the cases skeptics and believers still battle over today. The appeal of Alien Agenda wasn't just the sensational content. It was the synthesis. Marrs presented UFOs not as isolated sightings, but as a matrix of phenomena. Aerial encounters, abductions, government programs, ancient clues, and technological whispers. An everything is connected thesis that made readers ask whether centuries of oddities might belong to a single, uncomfortable story.
He connected so many dots I accidentally summoned my Wi-Fi password.
What? Password? Can I continue with the show, please?
Sorry, keep it up.
Marrs begins where the modern UFO era arguably began. World War II. Pilots from both Allied and Axis sides reported Foo Fighters, glowing orbs tracking aircraft at impossible speeds, performing maneuvers beyond known tech. After the war, the incidents didn't stop. In 1947, pilot Kenneth Arnold famously reported 9 shiny objects flying in formation near Mount Rainier, moving like saucers skipping on water, giving us the term flying saucers. Then came Roswell. The 1947 recovery of a flying disc near Roswell, New Mexico, announced in a military press release and retracted within a day, became the gold standard of UFO controversy. Marrs recounts evolving official explanations, from weather balloon to high-altitude spy balloon projects, and contrasts them with witness testimony describing debris with unusual properties, strange symbols, and military cordons. For Marrs, Roswell isn't an isolated puzzle. It's the opening act of systematic obfuscation. The US Air Force's Project Blue Book, tasked with investigating UFO reports, officially concluded most sightings had conventional explanations, leaving a small residue of unknowns. Marrs argued that the residue is the point. Anomalies that resisted easy answers, yet coincided with radar hits, multi-witness events, and pilot reports. If even a small percentage are genuine unknowns, he asked, what does that imply? The concept of an alien agenda is significantly characterized by patterns of secrecy. Through the releases facilitated by the Freedom of Information Act, we have observed government memos that acknowledge unidentified flying objects, UFOs, as a matter of national security, despite public statements that tend to dismiss their significance. Marrs explores alleged programs like Majestic 12.
Wait, you said Majestic?
Yes, why?
That name bring me some memories. That's what my ex-wife used to call me when we...
Hey, we're trying to be professional here. Behave. There may be children watching the show. So, Majestic 12. Purported secret committees overseeing extraterrestrial recovery, treating them as provocative claims situated in the broader culture of Cold War secrecy. Mars points to the Rand Corporation's quiet analyses, the CIA's interest in psychological operations, and the Air Force's dual-track approach. Deflect and debunk externally. Investigate quietly internally. Mars's main point isn't that every document is real, but that the amount of uncertainty indicates a deliberate effort to manage information about a situation that is difficult to control. Perhaps the most controversial part of Mars's synthesis centers on abductions, accounts of people taken against their will, subjected to medical procedures, and returned with missing time, scars, and intense psychological aftereffects. The classic Betty and Barney Hill case of 1961 set a template: a remote road, lost time, fragmented memories, and recurring nightmares leading to hypnosis and a narrative of a close encounter. Mars examines works by researchers who documented patterns across hundreds of cases: the presence of small greys with large eyes, the cold clinical atmosphere, the extraction of genetic material, and the implantation of devices.
Speaking of implantation of devices, if mine doesn't get better Wi-Fi, I want a refund.
Oh yeah, right, I feel you.
What do you mean? You had an encounter too?
Yes, but let's not skip the topic.
Hoppin' clams!
Some abductees report communications, even philosophical messages about environmental stewardship and human conflict. Others recall trauma and fear. Critics point to hypnosis-induced confabulation, cultural contamination, sleep paralysis, and suggestibility. Mars counters with physical traces: scoop marks, radiation readings, synchronized multi-witness experiences, and cases involving children with detailed, independent accounts. He doesn't claim all are genuine, but he insists the volume, consistency, and emotional gravity of these experiences demand serious study rather than ridicule. At the heart of this segment is a human story. Whether literal, psychological, or something between, these encounters reshape people's lives, altering beliefs, fracturing relationships, and pushing the boundaries of what we consider real. Mars treats abductees not as punchlines, but as witnesses living with the aftermath of an encounter they can't fully explain. Alien Agenda dives into phenomena that orbit the UFO mystery like moons around a planet. Crop circles, geometric patterns pressed into grain fields, are often dismissed as hoaxes, and indeed many are. But Mars highlights anomalies: intricate designs appearing rapidly and silently, elongated plant nodes as if heated from within, compass anomalies, and reports of lights in fields the night before formations were found. For him, crop circles aren't proof of extraterrestrials, but they may represent a signal that blends art, physics, and mystery. Then there are cattle mutilations, livestock found with organs precisely excised, blood absent, and no clear tracks around the body. Explanations range from scavengers and decomposition to covert surgical testing. Mars explores the unsettling possibility of clandestine programs, whether human or something else, linked to biophysical sampling. Again, not proof, but part of a pattern. Clinical interest in biology, especially reproductive and immune systems, seen also in abduction narratives. Edge cases like the Men in Black, strange, officious visitors who warn witnesses to keep silent, find a place in Mars's tapestry. Are they government agents, elaborate pranks, or something more uncanny, mimicking authority while failing basic human cues? Mars doesn't pronounce verdicts. He stacks the anomalies and asks, what picture emerges when you stop cropping the frame? Mars moves beyond modernity to the mythic record, ancient texts and artifacts that some interpret as evidence of past contact. He surveys claims that cultures worldwide encode knowledge of star systems, cosmic cycles, or advanced engineering techniques that seem to leapfrog their eras. From the precision of megalithic structures to depictions some call astronaut-like, the suggestion is bold. Have we been observed or influenced across millennia? Mainstream archaeology offers rigorous counterpoints: human ingenuity, incremental innovation, and the survivorship bias of exceptional sites. Mars doesn't dismiss this, but he frames ancient anomalies as part of a continuum. If visitation has occurred, perhaps it's not a modern phenomenon at all, but a recurring one, with contact drifting in and out of human awareness like comets on long, predictable orbits. One of Alien Agenda's recurring questions is technological. If UFOs are real craft, how do they move? Witnesses describe right-angle turns at high velocity, silent operation, and acceleration that would crush a human frame. Mars explores the idea of non-Newtonian propulsion, field effects, gravity modification, and energy systems that tap into the very fabric of space-time. He points to black-budget projects that remained secret for decades, the U-2, SR-71, and stealth programs, as proof that revolutionary aerospace can exist in the shadows. Skeptics argue that classified human tech explains many sightings. Mars flips that. If classified programs are real, where did some of those ideas originate? Are we reverse engineering, inspired by observation, or simply more inventive than we imagine? He also touches on the strategic implications. If any group, governmental or private, has access to propulsion breakthroughs, the economic and geopolitical consequences would be seismic. Mars suggests that such stakes could drive extreme secrecy, even disinformation campaigns designed to bury truth within absurdity. Mars ventures into space, cataloguing claims of anomalies on the Moon and Mars, unusual formations, glass-like structures, artificial-looking geometry, and whispered astronaut testimony. He discusses the infamous Face on Mars in the Cydonia region, later imaged at higher resolution, and debates about light and shadow versus intentional design. He also revisits oddities reported during Apollo missions, strange lights, radio chatter, and the persistent rumor that we're not alone on the Moon. Mainstream planetary science explains most of these features via geology, imaging angles, and higher resolution data. Yet Mars positions these controversies as part of a larger motif, a universe that may be teeming with intelligence, and a human program that may know more and fear more than it publicly admits. Alien Agenda isn't just about craft and creatures, it's about us. Mars looks at the psychology of belief and disbelief. Why some people spot patterns everywhere, while others resist them at all costs. He points to media ridicule as a control mechanism, shaping public discourse through laughter and dismissal. Conversely, he notes the pitfalls of credulity, accepting every claim untested, building cathedrals atop shifting sand. The book urges a middle path, disciplined open-mindedness. Evaluate the evidence, demand corroboration, but don't allow discomfort to be a veto. Mars suggests the UFO subject is an intelligence test of our institutions and ourselves. Can we navigate uncertainty without surrendering to either reflexive denial or easy fantasy? In the late 20th century, disclosure meant a sudden reveal. A press conference with a saucer on a flatbed and an alien waving hello. Mars suspected something different. A slow-rolling thaw. Drips of acknowledgement. Programs with carefully limited mandates. Videos released but not fully explained. Witnesses allowed to speak, but within safe parameters.
NDAs? Somehow scarier than aliens?
Yeah, Mars agrees with you. He argued that real disclosure would be complicated by liability, national security, and the sheer ontological shock of rewriting our place in the cosmos. If contact is real, and if it's been managed for decades, unspooling that story would entail admitting long-term secrecy, misdirection, and possibly crimes. Thus, disclosure might emerge not as a moment, but as a managed migration. From nothing to see here, to we've seen something and we're studying it. Across Alien Agenda, several patterns recur, like, for example, persistence. The phenomenon isn't new. It recurs across cultures and centuries, adapting to contexts and technologies. Duality, public debunking coupled with private concern. Official silence punctuated by quiet, serious inquiry. Biological interest. Reproductive themes in abductions, tissue sampling, genetic motifs, suggesting an agenda beyond simple surveillance. High strangeness. Phenomena that bleed into the paranormal. Missing time, telepathic impressions, poltergeist-like after-effects, hinting at a reality more layered than our physics currently models. Control versus contact. A tug-of-war between suppressing information and the inevitability of truth's slow leak. Mars acknowledges these points, then asks us to weigh the residue. When multiple pilots see and track the same object. When independent witnesses corroborate. When physical traces register. When government agencies quietly agree there's there. Does the skeptic toolkit explain everything? Or does it explain everything else? Where Mars invites critique is in the leap from pattern to conclusion. He presents connections. The burden remains to test them with rigor. Yet he maintains that the stigma around the subject throttles that very rigor. His solution? Normalize the study, fund it openly, and let the chips fall. So where does Alien Agenda leave us? Jim Mars didn't set out to hand us certainty. He set out to widen the frame. Across sightings, declassified memos, abduction narratives, edge phenomena, ancient puzzles and black projects, he argued that the UFO story isn't a string of isolated campfire tales. It's a long, tangled thread woven through our history, our governments, and our imaginations. You can contest individual strands, but the thread remains. What made Alien Agenda resonate in 1997 and why it still sparks debate isn't a single smoking gun. It's the pattern Mars insisted we confront. Public ridicule versus private concern. Repeated biological themes in encounters. Technology that looks like a leap ahead of us. And a secrecy apparatus that thrives in ambiguity. Even if you strip away every weak case, the residue is stubborn. It asks us to be better investigators, not louder believers or louder skeptics. If Mars is even partly right, the implications are profound. Contact, whether infrequent or ongoing, would be the biggest story in human history. It would pressure test our science, our institutions, and our sense of ourselves. It would demand new ethics. How we study non-human intelligence, how we handle whistleblowers, how we share discoveries across borders. It would force us to grow up, fast, without losing our curiosity or our caution. If Mars is mostly wrong, the lesson is still valuable. The UFO mystery becomes a mirror of how memory fails, how culture shapes belief, how secrecy breeds myths, and how good people can misinterpret extraordinary moments. In that case, we still gain something essential, a sharper toolkit for investigating extraordinary claims, and a stronger scientific culture that welcomes data without stigma. Mars's core challenge still stands. Don't let discomfort be a veto. Institutions change slowly. Paradigms change slower. But progress happens when we refuse to look away from the inconvenient. From Foo Fighters to Navy UAP videos, from Roswell headlines to congressional hearings, the drumbeat of anomalies hasn't fallen silent. It has grown more insistent and more testable if we choose to test it. Thank you for watching the show. My name is Sage Teller, and this is Chivy Chuckles. And if you found this exploration useful, share it with someone who thinks the UFO topic is only tinfoil and tabloids. It will help in great deal the channel to grow. Until next time, stay well and safe. Please tell us below. What single piece of evidence, or lack of it, most shapes your view? The conversation matters as much as the conclusion. Any final words to our audience, Chivy?
Oh yeah, I believe in UFOs the way I believe in my car keys. They're real, I just can't find them.